out to you and all of you listening in our home state of Michigan, and those of you listening anywhere else in the nation. Thank you for taking a part of your day to tune in, to listen, and kind of just share some outdoor content with us. Means a lot. But with that being said, Kurt, it's been a long time coming. I've been thinking about starting a podcast, live video like this for a while. So thank you for jumping into the deep end of the pool with me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun. We've been talking about it for a couple minutes for sure. So
Yeah. So we're just going to get right into it. So the first part of our podcast every week, month, whatever we decide to do, is just going to be catching up. Take just a time at the beginning of each episode and just talk about what we were able to do this month in the outdoors, whether that be hunting or fishing, and kind of what our plans are going ahead. So go ahead and start with you. Were you able to get out all this month, last couple of weeks, and did you have any success out there?
yeah, not a whole lot, not nearly as much as I had wanted to, but I think probably so far this month we've been out twice. Um, Once out at Cornwall flooding. I think the first week of the month, we did an overnight camping trip out there, and didn't get on a crazy bite, but we caught some decent perch and gills. Hopefully, I'll get around to
Nice.
editing that video sometime. But right now,
Do you have
I'm working on the
bluegill?
the previous video. Was actually just right here on our home lake, Wildwood. That was another overnight camping. And
Did you keep any of those gills for a fish fry, or?
we did not. We talked about doing a catch and cook, but I always have the best intentions of doing that. But then, like, by the time you get to the end of the day, I'm just like too tired to mess with it. I just, crack open the can of ravioli and
Yeah, have some tube steaks over the fire.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's the ice camping thing is a lot of work, especially when you're, for the most part, doing it by yourself. Zach is 8, so he can help with a few things, but most of the heavy lifting falls on Dad. So, usually I'm pretty exhausted by by the end of the day, by dinner time.
Out to one of my favorite little lakes. I don't even know if it's called considered a lake, but in Hawks, and it's probably only waist deep water, but there's a lot of pike and bass, and we did a bunch of tip up fishing. I actually took a buddy of mine, Jacob, had never caught. I took him out ice fishing once when I was teaching him in high school, and it was the absolute worst of all time. It was like 40-mile-an-hour winds, like our shack blew away. We had to chase it across the lake. We caught no fish. So he still had never caught a fish through the ice. So I told him, like, it will not be the same, like it will not be the same deal. So we went out and we got on a big bite, and it was really fun. We caught a bunch of bass and pike, so that was fun.
Yeah, that was a cool video. That was neat to see him ice his first fish. I was,
So
and
then,
I got to. I was actually impressed that. I mean, he just kind of went all in, like hardcore. Like there was no hesitancy. He was ready to go at it.
well, yeah, because like you don't line, and I usually, I guess, emphasize that too much, and they don't pull the line that much. So with Jacob, I'm like, you really want to give it a good hook set. So he just
Yeah, when you're when you're in 4 feet of water, it's there's not much to fight there.
No. Plans for the month coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fingers crossed. I'd like to hopefully catch some last ice. I keep saying that. I mean, obviously we're right here on Wildwood, and I could run out the back door and and put in an hour or two pretty much anytime I want. But I mean, honestly, even with the all of the warm temps, like as long as the overnight is below freezing, which it has been pretty much. Even, I mean, last night it was high 20s, but um, these daytimes in the 40s, especially if it's cloudy, it really doesn't hurt the ice that much. I mean,
Right.
we've got a solid. I went out and drilled. Yeah, I guess it was last night. Yeah. And I mean, right here on Wildwood, we still have a solid 10 inches of ice. Like, again, it's days in the 40s. It looks like, maybe from here on out. So it certainly is going to go relatively fast, but
I think as my grandpa would say. Right there, I didn't know. I mean, there's kind of a river flowage coming in. I didn't know what it was going to be. Had 15 to 18 inches of ice, which just was.
yeah, it's
The
really good.
next segment after next segment after catching up is going to be questions from you, the listeners. And just want to talk for a minute about how you can submit questions. This week, I went through just my personal YouTube channel, looked at different videos and picked out a couple questions. But if you're listening to this podcast, whether live or whether you're listening to it, a day or two later, whatever, go ahead and go to the comment section, throw in as many questions as you want, and we'll answer those every episode. And that can be anything about hunting, fishing, camping. It doesn't mean we know what we're talking about, but we'll answer the questions anyway. So somebody is printing something in my office, but so I'll give that a second to quiet down. But that's how you can submit questions, is just come to this, or even if you want to throw it on Old Minnow Boys YouTube channel too, ask him a question about how to catch 10-pound walleye. Apparently he knows how to do that. I definitely do not. So here's a couple of questions. Go to Old Minnow Boys channel. He went fishing this winter. What was that, in December, January?
Say that again. Sorry, you cut out for just a second. Yeah, that was early December. Um, yeah.
He caught a almost an 11-pound walleye. So you definitely want to check out that video. That's pretty cool. But anyways, a couple questions. The first one is from Tim Baker. He says, this was on one of my perch fishing videos. My 6-year-old boy wants to know if you bring snacks to eat, and if so, what do the pros like to snack on? And excellent question. I'm gonna give this question to you first, because my extremely poor. So in your videos, your guys' camping videos, your guys' snack game is strong. So what's your go-to?
I mean, it's kind of oddball, but for the last 2 years, we've been on a heavy kick with we call them the lucky mandarins, and the tough part is those are actually from Trader Joe's, which we don't have anywhere around here up north. So you got to drive way south to get these dried mandarin oranges. But we found those to not only be nourishing to the body, but they do bring good luck as well. So yeah, lucky mandarin.
So dried mandarin oranges?
Yeah, they're like dehydrated mandarin oranges.
Huh. I love dried mango.
Yeah.
But then like 2 pounds for you, but I guess
Right, right.
iteration. For me, usually I get so excited about going out that I forget snacks, and then I get out there and then I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to have something. But I do always have a thermos of coffee. I am a coffee addict. I have to have my caffeine. So for me, thermos of coffee. If I'm gonna be out all day, probably gonna bring some jerky and some sunflower seeds. So couple more. This one's from David Fox, and he was asking a question on specifically a Wildwood Lake video. He said, "Fished that lake for years, talking about Wildwood Lake, and loved it. Is there a size limit for pike?" And I thought that was a great question, and also kind of an opportunity to uh, just talk about a lot of the lakes in our area, Wolverine, where I live, Presque Isle County, Hawks, Michigan. There's a lot of inland lakes that don't have a size limit on pike. So if you're just watching one of my videos, sometimes we'll keep like a 15, 20-inch pike, and people are probably like, what are you doing? Like, why would you violate on camera? So there's there's a lot of um, lakes in our area that are just littered with those little snot rockets, slime balls, whatever you want to call them. And there's a 5 fish limit per person, but there is no pull out all the pike. It's made a difference. The ones that are in there are getting bigger, fatter, healthier, and so you definitely have to look in your game laws. But there are a lot of lakes that you can actually keep any size pike, which is pretty cool if you're fishing with a kid. And he's, Dad, can we keep this pike? Sorry, but it's not 24 inches. There's a lot of lakes you actually can, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, if you look in the fishing guide, I mean, there's, I don't know, I should have pulled it up before we jumped on, but I mean, there's got to be close to 2 dozen lakes, I think, just in northern Michigan, that have that pike regulation,
Yeah.
which is good. I mean, I think, we're maybe even starting to see that a little bit here on Wildwood. I know, like, even with the Lake Association, we're always encouraging people, hey, let's take out some of those smaller pike, and we've still not caught anything really big. I think, the Lake Association has a fishing contest every summer. I think the biggest pike out of Wildwood this last summer was 31 inches, which again is not huge by any stretch, but it's decent size.
Right.
The biggest that we caught this winter was 28, right at the beginning of the season. And then I did catch a 29 incher last summer, but again, I think it, slowly shifting, and definitely good to keep culling out those hammer.
Right. That brings me, so literally just today, I put up a short. I caught that 18-inch. I think it was like an 18-inch largemouth in that little lake in Hawks. Which for that lake, that's a huge bass, right? So somebody commented, I think on the video, I said like, "Oh, that's a big bass. That's a nice bass," and he's like, "That is not a big bass, and that is not even a nice bass." And it doesn't bother me. Like, I'm not insecure. Like, I just out there having fun. But a lot of times, especially in northern areas like this, catching kind of like a warm water fish, an 18-inch bass might be the biggest bass in that lake. So, like, yeah, it might not be huge compared to Florida, but that's a big bass for that lake. So be careful, like when you're commenting and stuff, like just in general, like you don't want to just sound like, a goober and be like, oh, we were catching little fish. That might be a big fish for like that body of water. I thought of that because you said for Wildwood, 31-inch pike, like, most people probably that, but that's a big pike for that lake.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
One more and then we'll get moving on. This is from Earl Martin. Any tips on location for walleye and perch on Grand Lake? And I won't get into ice fishing tips, mostly because I had a terrible ice season. So wherever I fish, if you ever saw me out there in a blue shack, don't fish there because there's no fish. Um, but we're getting into spring, and I feel like we've done fairly well, my grandpa and I, over the last couple of years on walleye in the spring. Um, soon as the ice goes off, walleye are in inland lakes are looking to spawn. And the earlier you can fish them, the better. Usually by the opener down here, which is, I believe, like the last, don't quote me on this, but it's like the last Saturday of April. And then in the Upper Peninsula, it's always the 15th of May. But those those walleye are in shallow, rocky places if it's available. They love to spawn on gravel, rocks, and usually in pretty shallow water, we found. Perch like to spawn in like perch grass, like sand and weed bottom, whereas walleye are going to be in rock and gravel. So if you can find like on Grand Lake specifically or Long Lake, if you find like maybe fish all of the islands, fish the rocky points, the gravel bars, stuff like that. If you're on sand or weeds, you may catch the odd walleye in the spring, but for the most part, the concentrations of fish are going to be on or around gravel bars, rock points, stuff like that. And we like to fish them with jigs and stuff like that, but you can catch them with swim baits, you can catch them with crankbaits. If they're during the spawn, you're probably going to get mostly a lot of males that are looking for the females. If you're a little bit post spawn, you might slide off a little bit deeper water and you'll get on a really good bite where the fish are kicking back into like, we're done spawning. It's time to feed up, get renourished. And you can find them kind of sliding off into like, you'll find them in the middle of the water column. But anyways, if you're fishing in lake, look for rock and gravel. And then as the water starts to warm up, good luck.
So are you going to give some GPS coordinates or no?
Yeah, those will be for sale in our next live. No, I'm just kidding. It really doesn't matter, honestly, as long as you just got to move around. We found one place will be incredible one year, the next year it'll be terrible. You just got to move around and stay mobile. Don't fish memories. Don't make the fish come to you. Yeah, you go where the fish are. Tip of the month. And I call it tip of the month. If we end up doing this weekly, then it'd be tip of the week. But in Michigan, at least where we're at, northern Michigan, March is kind of an odd spring in general. Basically, from the beginning of March all the way until the middle of May, it's like the same weather. It's like some days you feel like it's spring, some days you feel like it's February, like it's hard to tell. And especially towards the end of March into April, the ice gets bad. You can't ice fish. The trout, the browns and the steelies haven't really started running good yet for the most part. And my tip for the month is use this time, this kind of weird time, to get organized. I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at like my hunting. I still have a muzzle loader that I need to shoot off. Like I've got hunting backpacks and my crossbow I got to get cleaned up. Use this time, kind of off season, if you want to call it, to like get ready for spring. Because as soon as the ice comes off, the walleye start biting, the perch start running. Like you're going to be scrambling, rigging rods, and getting stuff out of the way. So this year, I'm definitely making like a point to. I got a new camera bag to fit more of my camera gear. I'm rigging rods for open water, putting hunting stuff away, and it's almost looking like I might be prepared for walleye season this year. But that's kind of my tip of the month: is just be, if you're a Michigander, at least, this doesn't apply. You're probably already jacking up huge largemouth if you're in Florida, but be ready for when that spring hits, regardless of what you like to do, and take advantage of this off season.
Good stuff.
Let's see. Moving along, a couple more things. We're going to look at weird products, and then we're going to have a couple of burning questions. Weird products, I actually wanted to. Your lure that you sell on your channel and your website at the Old Minnow Boy, which is the drum roll.
Rattle Rat. The Rattle Rat is right here. We got we got them rocking and all stocked up for spring. So yeah, this is something that we worked on and released last year, but it's basically a 3.5 inch kind of wake bait style, and comes in 4 different color patterns. This one happens to be the Radatory, and I know that you fished with this a little bit last year. I think, like, I've talked to a lot of people about this, even over the winter time. I was talking to Josh McGovern from Jocelyn Lures just the other night. I was over at his house, and he paints amazing lures, and he actually has painted some of the rats. But I think there's something to be said for a lot of lakes where I think maybe to some extent, regardless of the fishing pressure, but just to throw something different, right? Like to throw something that the fish are not used to seeing, and especially, like, if we're talking about bass, um, they get so used to, springtime. People are throwing jerk baits, twitch paws type thing, and obviously that can work. And then once we get into season opener and whatnot, and people are throwing all kinds of plastics on certain bodies of water, cranks, spinner baits, football jigs, etc. And the reality is, like, there's not many people that are throwing something like a rat, and I think that it just really does. What we found last year when we started using it was it just triggered a ton of fish. Especially if they're being lethargic, they're not willing to, to hit other things that you're throwing. We just hardly ever had a day where the rat didn't produce and produced really well. So we're excited to get the ice off and keep throwing the rat. So yeah, it's definitely something different. Would fall into that maybe a little bit weird category, but it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I just feature it in a weird product just because I personally had never heard of or fished with a rat before. But like you said, sometimes it's something they've never seen, and sometimes it really doesn't matter what you throw at a hungry fish, right? Like if you're around fish, you could throw a stick at them and they'll bite, and other times you could throw a live worm at a fish that isn't hungry and he's not going to eat. So it's pretty cool. You can definitely pick. Where can you pick those up at?
Yeah, just oldminnowboy.com.
Sweet. Definitely need to restock my supply for sure. Okay, burning questions. Here's how this is going to work. I'm going to ask a question, and then we'll rotate who gets to answer it first. So you're going to answer this first one. What is your favorite Michigan fish to target, and why?
I mean, this has probably evolved over the years, but I mean, now that we're here on Wildwood, it's got to be largemouth. And as far as why, I I gotta say, there's nothing more exhilarating than a topwater explosion. um, especially in a cool, calm morning with a little mist rising off. Kind of like that morning last summer with the kayak fish. That top water bite is nothing like it.
I don't, and I don't think most people, if you're out of staters, would really equate Michigan with like a largemouth state or like. And you're definitely not going to catch like a double-digit bass in large. I mean, if you
Yeah,
honestly a pound big largemouth, but there are not good size, but there are a lot of largemouth. Like just about every lake has a largemouth, and it is super fun. I wrestled with it. I would have to say hopefully my grandpa doesn't listen to this. But my favorite fish to target is hula pike. And, I mean, the title of this podcast, the outdoorsman. Like, I am nowhere near a skilled enough fisherman to go out and like target muskie, and definitely don't have the patience to throw 10,000 casts to fool a fish. Even if you put me on a muskie, I probably would not be able to catch it. But pike, I mean, you can catch them on just about anything. They're really plenteous. They're fun to catch. The little guys all the way up to, I mean, I caught a 40-incher a couple years ago on Hubbard Lake. Like, I love catching pike. And my grandpa is a strict walleye guy, so I'm sorry that I'm not holding that up for you, Grandpa, but I love catching. He calls them stinking pike, but actually, I did lie because I said we would rotate who goes first answering the question, but you kind of have to answer this one by yourself. Um, will the Cornwall Dam be repaired or destroyed?
Yes, 95%. Yes. 95%.
Yeah. Kind of talk about what that is. I know that's a project that's near and dear to your heart, and just kind of give a brief overview of what's going on there.
Yeah, quick 30-second synopsis. Cornwall Creek flooding is, roughly a 200-acre impoundment in the Pigeon River Country State Forest, which is, just a stone's throw from where I live here in Boulder. And there is a pretty sizable earth embankment dam there, Cornwall Creek Dam, and reaching the end of its life expectancy, it needs to be repaired. And as of today, right now, removing the dam and eliminating the flooding. So there's a pretty big grassroots effort that I'm helping to hopefully come up with some solutions to get funding and hopefully change the current course of action that the DNR plan administration. So I could talk about it for hours. It's a pretty complicated topic and situation, but there's certainly a lot of energy behind it. So fingers crossed that we can do successful.
Definitely check out Kurt's YouTube channel. Again, he has like 4 or 5 videos. Does a great job outlining to where even somebody like me can understand what's going on. But it really is a worthy cause to get behind, and you can find out all that info from his YouTube channel, and also what's the Facebook group? Is it Save Cornwall?
Yeah, if you just search Save Cornwall on Facebook, or go to savecornwall.org.
And it seems like I'm getting, daily updates about what's going on, so that'd be a cool thing to follow along, and you can actually be a part of helping out as well. A couple more questions. If you could only fish one Michigan lake for the rest of your life, what would that lake be?
Oh man.
I tried to make it fair because, of course, I got to make the question, but I tried not to think about it too much, so it's as raw as possible. So here's my thought. Right where I'm at in my county, Grand Lake is well known. You have so many inland lakes, and I think I'm going to go with Grand Lake really for one reason. Small inland lakes can easily be like, the fish population can be destroyed or fished out really fast, right? But I used to love fishing Lake Nettie. It's a lake close to us. In the summer, there's pontoon boats and jet skis that just circle the lake, and you really can't get to fish very well. So smaller lake, sometimes can be pretty volatile, but Grand Lake is so big, has so much potential as far as you can catch trophy smallmouth, walleye, perch in the winter. Literally, you can drill a hole in 4 feet of water or 20 feet of water, drop a jigging spoon down, 30 seconds, your rod's going do 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 with a perch. So I think if I could only fish one lake for the rest of my life in Michigan, it would be Grand Lake in Presque County.
Yeah, no, I feel somewhat the same, just in terms of, generally speaking, I'm a small inland lake type person. Usually the bigger water kind of intimidates me, and I just don't have a lot of experience with it. But for the reasons that you just said, if I had to choose one, I would definitely have to choose a bigger body of water. It would probably be body of water. which quite frankly I hardly fished at all. But for all the reasons you just said, large body water, really diverse and population. If I could only fish one lake, I would definitely have to do that. I would definitely have fun learning it and spending a lot of time there. So yeah, I'd have to do bird. I'd have to do bird.
All right. One more serious question, and then one more kind of not serious question, and then we'll get done here. But what are your outdoor goals for 2023? Whether that be like film capturing wise or actual like hunting, fishing.
Yeah. I mean, number one would be Cornwall. That is outdoors. That is outdoors. A big goal. No.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see where that goes. But yeah, beyond that, I haven't put into this yet. We're definitely planning on spending a lot of time in the Pigeon River country. We're planning on doing some shed hunting here over the next month. Which is something we've never really done before.
Elk sheds over there, right?
What's that?
Elk.
That is absolutely on Zach and I's bucket list. We would love to find a bull elk shed. Whitetail as well. We'll see, but that's kind of our nearest goal is just we want to find a shed, whether it's elk or whitetail. We want to go out and specifically be looking for them and see what we can find. So that's kind of the next thing on our agenda.
Well, I kind of had three. The first one, obviously, was like to start a podcast. And if you're still listening or you listen to, first of all, my hat is off to you. Also, I will work on getting. I think the audio quality is kind of cheeks on my side. I will work on getting that squared away. But I want to break 1,000 subs on my YouTube channel. I think we're getting close. But that's kind of a personal goal. But also this year, so a couple of years ago, I caught a personal best and also a master angler rock bass. And my brother, I didn't even know it, but he did all the things you have to do, I guess, get the right picture and documentation. He sent it in and surprised me with the patch or whatever they send you, like a official letter from the DNR, you're a master angler in this category. And that was pretty cool. So this year I want to add another master angler to that. And I'm going to try to get a master angler largemouth bass, which I think catch and release is 21 inches.
Yep.
In Michigan, which the fish and get it back in. My excuse basically just to say I caught 121 in my life, but I definitely want to, when I go fishing, maybe choose I could go here or I could go here and have a chance at maybe not as many fish, but a bigger fish. And I kind of want to make that hard choice to maybe fish a little bit bigger body of water somewhere where there's a little bit bigger fish. A master angler largemouth. Last question for you is, will you come on the podcast?
I might have to pray about that one. I don't know.
Oh, so I'll be back here next time. This guy may not be, but you know what? If he doesn't come on, we don't need him. We can do it without him. I'm just kidding. But super glad. Thank you, Kurt, for being on. I appreciate it. Also, thank you, all of you who are listening. Appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, if you wouldn't mind by just sharing, telling a friend, subscribing, the whole deal, and as always, we'll catch you on another video. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.